This is the All-Star Networking Show with your host, Cathy Paper.
Welcome to the All-Star Networking Show. Super excited today to talk with Angela Gustafson. Thank you for being on the All-Star Networking Show. Super psyched to have you here. You and I crossed paths, 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. I don't know. I don't always look up in the date book, but why don't you let people know kind of what you're up to now, and just so they can have a sense of where you're coming from. And I know you've got a lot going on, and then we'll dive into talking about why you're such an all-star networker and connector, going back to high school and college.
Okay, I guess I'm an all-star networker. I'll keep this brief. I've spent the last 10 years launching and growing a premium CPG, which is consumer packaged goods, granola brand by the name of Granola. And I'm a founder and an entrepreneur. I'm a 25 plus year resident of Minneapolis. I'm a mom to 4 really cool young adults, and the wife or a wife to the most amazing man I have ever met.
Oh,
that's me in a nutshell.
Yo, I love that. I love that. Well, shout out to your hubby. I think you're the first guest to really, give props to the partner in all of this to make some of this magic happen. Let me just say, I love that you say you're a 25 plus Minnesotan, because one of the things I hear is, people don't always feel like they're a native Minnesotan, when they've been here a long time. When was it that you felt like you were a Minnesotan? Was it multiple, winter jackets, or why do you say you've been here 25 years? Say a little bit more about that.
I think I say that because I am so proud to be a resident of Minneapolis specifically, but Minnesota more broadly. I love this state, and I think I've called it home probably for at least the last 20 years. I think it took, I moved here in 91 is when I graduated from college, and I'm a Midwest gal. I was born in Iowa to a couple of Hawkeyes. They were in married student housing, and literally that was half my wardrobe. As a kid, we moved to Indiana, and that didn't work so well in middle school in terms of making friends because it was the Hoosier state. So then, we were Indiana, and then moved to Minnesota. And I went here for high school, but I was still just always such a Hawkeye fan and kind of felt more of an allegiance to Iowa. Went to school at Madison, and it took 3 years to really cheer for the Badgers, because I still just I'm a Hawkeye, right?
You're a Hawkeye.
And then I moved here to the Twin Cities. I worked in downtown St. Paul, lived in St. Paul, loved that city as well. And I would say, and I married a Minnesotan, born and raised in Mankato. So I would say probably 5, so maybe late 90s. And I've been I feel like a true Minnesotan since.
Nice. I love it. You cover so many of the bases of the original Big Ten. Now it's such a huge division. But tell me, we cross paths with a few people. I'm thinking of Madison and Betsy. Shout out to Betsy. Tell me how when did you realize you were a connector with people?
That's a great question, because I was thinking about this conversation with you, and I feel like it started more. I was somewhat of a connector in high school too. I've always been a little bit, of a leader and a lover of people and friends and very social. But it wasn't until college that I feel like those relationships I made there, I wanted to make sure that they lasted forever. And I didn't really know, but I just feel like I put so much more, even some of the relationships with professors before it was even easy. We didn't have texting and email and all of that, but really deep friendships. And then moving to the Twin Cities and work there. And then my husband and I, in the mid 90s, went into the Peace Corps. And it was meeting people in a completely different world than we were used to. We were on the Dominican Republic, Haiti border. And, we tried and have still. I mean, now it's like WhatsApp is so amazing and they all have technology. I mean, none of us had, and I can be in touch and see, I mean, these kids that were always in our house are now moms and have their own kids. And, the aging, it's amazing. And my Spanish is horrible. That's the hard thing, but thank goodness for all the translation. If you don't use it, you lose it. But
Yeah.
all the translation apps, they'll leave these long messages and I can just translate them into English quick. But yeah, I'm sorry, that was a really long answer.
No, I love it because there's so many questions within what you just said, but
Yeah.
actually, I don't think it is. I jotted a lot of notes because you said you're a leader, you're a lover of people, and you're a connector, and also that the relationships lasted forever. Forever. You went in sort of with that intent, and again, I would say from my perspective of seeing you, in several different rooms or just knowing what you've built in the community, it's that genuine connecting. So I think it's not a rambling answer. It's saying intentionally, I'm building a relationship that's going to last forever. So my friends or people always say, some people are transactional and some people are relational.
Yeah. And very relational. I mean, even the business, when I first started the granola business, it was 100% relational, right? It was forming relationships with the retailers and the people that were going to help me make the product, et cetera. And then, it grew for many, many years, we were at about a 200 store count. That's where our product was in about 200 stores. And, the financials of a consumer packaged good, just demand scale. And so I started to scale. It's like I found a national distributor and we start shipping the product down to Texas, for example. And then it became like 100% transactional. It was just my product was just going on trucks and going down to these stores in Texas. And I didn't get to know the management or the people working in those stores. And it just, my soul is just fed on relationships. So.
Yes, no, that's why you got to build it to that level or to build the connections. How did you, I guess I'm curious about this, the Peace Corps is a whole different tangent. I didn't know that about you, you and your husband. So how, I guess I will ask because I'm curious, and this is the part of, again, people that are listening, when you're networking with people or building relationships, sometimes it takes years to find out those nuggets that you don't always think are as interesting. But to me, that's super fascinating. My parents or my in-laws, they had done the equivalent to the Danish Peace Corps after the war. And so had that experience. What compelled you to do the Peace Corps?
My husband and I we're complete best friends, and we're usually on the same page on things. We have completely different origin stories. And I let him own his and I own mine. I guess, Peace Corps, there was a lot of talk about Peace Corps on campus, at Madison, right? So I think that's where I first became familiar with it. And then as I was working in financial services in downtown St. Paul, I was sitting in on a session that, had interviewed a bunch of people at end of life and asking them what their greatest regret was. And it wasn't, the fear of pain or the fear of dying or, being away from loved ones. It was like, did my life have purpose for that individual? That's different for each of us. But I was sitting there thinking, wow, and both my husband and I kind of talked about Peace Corps, and I thought we really have to do this because it just, for us, I think it was just something that was to just get out of our comfort zone, try something completely different. And that for us was just, we weren't ready we were very new. It was our Caribbean honeymoon. I mean, we were like down in the Dominican Republic, we call it that. That was not why we did it, of course, but it was an incredible experience. And we just weren't ready to, start a family, buy a house, have the white picket fence and all that. We just thought we want to do something different. And it was just absolutely life-changing.
And how long isn't Peace Corps, like 2 years? How long?
Yeah, 2 years plus 3 months of training. So 27 months total.
Wow.
So we got married in late November and we left in August of the following year. And we're there through November of 96. So 94 to 96.
Okay, I'm gonna have to have you back to talk about that experience, or because Peace Corps is you made probably a lot of friends from the Peace, like don't you do it with a big group of people or?
Yep. So people from the United States of all ages and people going in to, so going in, we met with returned Peace Corps volunteers of all different ages, and there are a lot in this area and are still connected to with all of us, right? Depending on the activities that you choose to engage in, your network just gets broader and broader. And so then we've got, obviously friends that we made down in the Dominican Republic. And now our son, our oldest, is serving in Thailand in the Peace Corps. So
Wow.
we really did not, all of our kids will say, and that we didn't force it on them or highly encourage or anything. And I don't even feel like we had to talk about it that much because Brian and I always had each other to talk to about it, about our experiences. But yeah, he wanted to do it. So. And he's got about another 6 months left in his service.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That shared experience. How do you, okay, we talked about this before I pushed the record button of the being an authentic connector, which you are totally authentic. So anybody listening, if you can't hear it in her voice, I'm telling you, meet Angie in person, and there's just when right? When you know when somebody's being genuine, or at least I feel like I do. So say more to the listeners about when you're thinking about a relationship, you don't think, oh, I want this to last forever. You just maybe when you look back now, you realize you had habits for that. Or how do you start building a relationship?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you look at people. I just look at the face and I try to listen and it's like I'm searching for the gold in each person. I just feel like if I have one strength, that might be one of them and it's interesting. Like I have friends, for example, that maybe they struggle with where they want their weight to be and they'll lose 20, 30 pounds, right? And somewhere in the conversation after I've been talking with them for a while, they're like, did you notice I lost weight? And I'm like, oh no, I'm sorry. I didn't. I'm kind of just very focused on the face and really trying to, and just really, I find people fascinating. I love to be in the company of people. I love to learn what excites them. I like to get to, you're probably going to get to this question, but if you don't mind if I throw it out, but
Please.
one little trick with networking that's just been golden for me is walking with people, doing this walking and talking. So right after COVID, I was kind of going a little crazy. We all were, right? But I was like really missing my girlfriends. I had all the a lot of us that have, school age kids or college kids, they're all back and we're all in this house. So it was full of family and that was lovely. But, I was missing my girlfriends and I'm like, how can I connect with them? And I'm like, well, we can be outside and we can walk parallel to each other and we can talk. And that has been most networking meetings that I try to set up. I'm like, let's walk and talk. I mean, we've got beautiful lakes, we've got trails, we've got paths, we've got neighborhoods. It doesn't matter where you live in the state. I think you can go for a walk. And I have just found that it evens the playing field. You're right. People it's shocking. You can have like CEOs and really, really accomplished professionals and they come in their yoga gear, and we just go for a walk and, you can go any time of day. And I feel like just being outside, being in nature, being kind of on this level ground. And really, I try to ask about things that people love, like what's near and dear to them, what really fires them up. And it's just, and you can eventually move to the professional stuff, right? But I feel like the creative ideas that come out, the genuineness, the authenticity, it's just wonderful. So that's my tidbit. It's just been life-changing for me. I've gone on so many walks and you know what, you could say, well, the walk around the lake might take an hour, at an average pace, 3-mile lake. You don't have to walk around the lake. You can keep it to a half an hour. You'd be shocked at what happens in that conversation versus like over a cup of coffee. And I love coffee, but there's just something about walking with people.
Okay, I love that. And actually, tell me, I mean, it's funny when you said that of like inviting somebody for a walk or suggesting that you do a walk and talk. I got a little like, so how did you do that? Do you know the person? Is this somebody you don't know or um I don't
Both.
know. I'm pretty bold and I don't know if I could call up. I did call somebody and say, "Hey, can I come meet with you?" So do you initiate the walk and talk? You got to break this apart for me.
I totally
Does
do.
anybody
Kathy,
listen?
you are bold. And I can totally see you doing it. And people look at me, they're like, really? I mean, I could
No, no, no.
admire.
I love the idea. Don't get me wrong. I love the idea, but I would love you to tell people, how do you do this? Tell me, because I don't know if I could. Again, I'm going downtown to meet somebody in their office for the 30-minute conversation. Are you saying you would invite them to, hey, let's go for a walk?
Yeah. I'm at this point of transition right now. So I am, I'm trying to figure out this next professional chapter and I just want to keep making them better, right? So it's a high bar to be better than Gustola Granola because I loved that work. But I'm really trying to be intentional about who are the people that I think are doing really, really neat work. Amazing thing for our community or in their professional lives, or they're just highly creative, even like creative people that just their art just brings me absolute joy. I'll just reach out to them. Just people like to be, I think, genuinely complimented, right? And I'll be like, I've been admiring you from afar or whatever, I'll introduce myself and try to, I mean, there should be some obvious reason for them to take time.
Yeah.
But I am more often than not pretty shocked at the acceptance rate is pretty high. It's like, well, sure, maybe because it's just odd enough, that somebody would like reach them cold and say, hey, let's have a conversation. But I mean, it's great. It's a great way to meet people. And then they oftentimes know people, right, that could be of help, for some of these next steps. And it just keeps broadening your network. And you find out when you're on walks, you find out so much more. You find out a lot more mutual connections than you do over a cup of coffee. I'm convinced of that. Be like something will come up in the kind of like, oh, so do you know so and so? Or, they'll mention something about, a house nearby, did you know, this, I have a friend that lives over here and you might end up knowing that friend. Yeah, it's kind of wild.
No, no, no. I love that. I love that actually. So I mean, it's why I'm going to ask kind of that follow-up question or, you said you cover so many more topics with people when you're walking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really interesting, to think about how do people do it. Like I meet a lot of people when I play tennis and we talk about things and, usually after you play, you get to know them a little bit better and you do that. But I love the idea of that, more names come up or you said you ask what people love to do, like just some of those questions or ways of connecting naturally. I could totally see it bringing the best out of people. I think of the people I go walk with, and our conversations they're a little deeper or they're a little bit about, hey, what are you really about? There's probably something about moving your body, right? And you said creative ideas. So I love that. And I'm gonna commit to doing it because it feels out of my comfort zone. And I think one of the ways to build your networking or relationship building skills is to get a little out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. And some people walk really fast, and I'm kind of a fast walker, and some people walk really slow. And, sometimes it's hard. People walk for an entire hour, or, they don't realize it's like, oh, this takes a bit of energy, but you figure out the pace and it always works. I can't think of one time where, ooh, that flopped or, oh gosh, there was a lot of empty space or, we couldn't figure out what to talk about. Never.
Right. Well, what's interesting, you said you look at people or you look at their faces.
Oh,
right. And Zoom is interesting. Here we are on Zoom, right? I wish we were in the studio, like right next to each other. There's definitely a different energy, but there's something about walking. It's like driving in the car where you're not staring at the person. So you're both just kind of blah, 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 blah. Like you feed off that energy. So for what it's worth.
well.
I love it. I'm just thinking about two mutual connections, right? So you've lived here 25 years, you built this business and 200 stores is so impressive. How do you, somebody that's newer to networking or maybe hasn't connected with their relationships in a long time, like how did you restart or how do you start building connections? Like, or if you're thinking right now you're in transition, did you like make a list of people you wanted to talk to or?
I do. Yeah. If and it depends on what aspect of life you're trying to build that network. It could be professionally, it could be socially,
Yeah.
it could be, right? Because sometimes all we're doing is working and we got plenty of professional network contacts, but we need to find more social. I How did I start building it? I guess the other thing, I mean, it's like anyone is, in my mind, is a network connection. Anyone at any level, at any, you know, so there's just so many opportunities, and even restaurants that you patronize a lot, like going and, talking to the owner and just saying how much you enjoy the restaurant. I mean, that person can become a network connect. I mean, anybody can. I Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about that. I think sometimes it just because it's so natural for me.
Yes.
It's hard for me to, because I know plenty of people and really close friends of mine that are just not wired this way.
Right. So let
And
me frame it a different way for you because I think you really are, I don't want to say skilled seems calculated, but I think you're a natural at it. So when you're telling one of your children, how do they branch out and meet more people? How do you tell them, or how do you coach them to start? Or are they naturals too?
well, you know what? They are almost all of them, not all. Three of the four are very, very social and outgoing and pretty natural at that, and the other not as much. I think it's um, always being true to themselves, being authentic and kind, following up, being grateful is huge. I think you need to thank people for, so say they're being given time, they're shadowing someone or have had a conversation or getting help from someone, is, really expressing gratitude and keeping a list of those people and circling back from time to time. I mean, I think all of us can, whether it's our kids or it's, they've come across people that could be influential and helpful in their lives.
Yes.
And it's making sure that you hang on to that I think in a healthy way. So if it's like a professor that's really well connected in your field or something, just reach out once in a while, because for example, professors get into their profession because they love students. They love teaching the material and they love those relationships. And so it's a win-win. It's not only a win for you to keep them in your network, but they want to know that they're being thought of as well.
Yes.
So I think I make all of them, and I make them kind of crazy, but I'm like, keep a list, and try to, I'm like, this is a perfect time to like reach back to that person.
Yes. Okay, so I don't think you make them crazy. And I'm going to say to the listeners, I just jotted down a few things. Either push rewind or I'm going to tell you the notes I just wrote down. You said, be true to yourself, be kind, follow up, be grateful, keep a list, circle back. That's one that I'd love to know where people land. And then you said, connect with everyone and be helpful. The professors in your network, that was just a great synopsis for how people do it, Angie. So
Can I send you another one? I was actually just talking, so the son that's in Thailand, and boy, that kid talks. He never used to be a big talker, but I think it's because all he can speak there is Thai.
yeah.
Which is hard, right? He's a year and a half in, and that's a very, very hard language. So we get into some really long conversations, but something came up. We were talking about he went to the University of Iowa, and he got a graduation card from one of the custodial crews. or whatever you called it
Yes.
in the dorm that he lived in. So they even kind of naturally like just, it doesn't matter who you are, you can develop strong relationships with everybody and yeah, it's wonderful. And he's stayed in touch with a lot of people. And it's so much easier now with technology, right? You can grab
Yes.
somebody's cell number and you can, yeah, stay connected.
Stay connected. And I love which is why, again, I didn't know about your Peace Corps experience. And I love the question you asked of people at the end of their life, like, what do they um, wish they had done or where were they at? But I have to ask this one question because I'm curious. I love school. I wish I had studied harder in school. I was very social, but I loved school
And an athlete.
what?
And an athlete.
I was an athlete.
Yeah.
What did you major in? What did you study?
Business, marketing.
Business. Okay.
I was an athlete too. I still am an athlete, but
What did you do in college?
I did not play a sport in college. I had a lot of fun in college and did, recreational volleyball, softball were my two big sports in high school.
Nice. Okay, well, we can still do both of those. I'm all for getting any competitive outlet I can find that's fun. Because for me, at least, if you and I were walking, which I would love to do, I would be telling you that I love, tennis and running around and competing and the whole deal. But I want everybody to win. So before we wrap up, is there any either kind of final tip or learning, or sometimes, people that are amazing networkers and connectors don't even think about like the mistakes you've made in connecting with anybody, or just anything else you want to impart before we wrap up?
Oh, do I have anything else? I feel like it can be a lot of work. It's like, and it doesn't seem like, because I want to stay connected, but I'm old-ish, older, it's like, how do I say that? I feel super young. I feel like a kid, but I know that I'm not.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you how we frame it up for my 91-year-old father, because he listens and he's been on the podcast. My sister told him he was super old. So you can, if you want to say you're old, then there's like categories. You're super old and super duper old. And, you got to have your sense of humor. So not
oldish. I kind of like oldish, but by the way, it was so wonderful to meet your dad the other evening. So
yes.
But yeah, he seems very sweet. I think here's another little tip. I think it's worth the effort. And one way that I found to just kind of, you can be overwhelmed, and I think my heart aches a lot. Like, oh, I miss seeing this family or that family or this couple, or just these people that used to be so central to our daily lives. And then your kids go off to school, and they become adults, and I miss those people. But when I think of them, which something I'll be out running around and I'll think something will make me think of, Heidi. And I'll be like, okay, right now I will literally stop the run. I'll stop my Strava because my pace matters. No, I'm kidding.
Yes.
It really doesn't. But
yes, it does. Yes.
I'll send a quick message to Heidi. I'll send a quick text. Hey, so this just made me think of you. I hope you have a great day. I do it at least once a day. I try to do that. And so I'm reaching out, in a given year, like 365 individual people. And I find it's just so easy now with texting. And I think that goes a long way when people it's like, oh, this person's thinking of me and I haven't talked to them in years or whatever. That's a super easy way to keep your network too.
Nice. I love that.
And bring just a tiny bit of joy to somebody.
And okay, Angie, what you said is to quick once a day, that's 365 people. Real quickly, where do you keep your list, or how do you keep track of all of this?
I don't keep track of that.
You don't keep track of that. Okay.
I don't keep track of that.
Good.
It's just they're generally people that we are in connection with, whether it's through, well, I was going to say through holiday cards or something, but some not. Some it's just like pretty random, but oftentimes it'll lead to oh my gosh, it's been so long. Let's get together for coffee. And I'll be like, that sounds great. Let's go for a walk. No.
Yes.
Sometimes I do a lot of coffees too, but it's,
Good. Well,
and a lot of us have it does take time, as you know. I mean, you're a champion networker and it takes time to keep in touch. And sometimes we just don't have all that time, but to actually meet with people or walk with people, but we can send a quick text and just, and know that people have our back when life gets tough, because it always does. There's just always challenges, that you've got people that are there and that they know that you're there for them when things are, so.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'm excited. If basketball is on your list of things, I think you and I should go to either the Hawkeye game or the Madison game go for men's or women's basketball. The season is just starting.
I love that.
Yeah. So there will be one of those things to do. And if not, we will do a walk. But thank you so much for being a guest today. And I'll have people reach out to you on LinkedIn if that works.
That's perfect.
Okay. And super great to connect with you. So thanks for being a guest today.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Cathy. Always a joy to talk with you.
Thanks for listening to the All-Star Networking Show with Cathy Paper. If you're interested in being a guest, please contact Cathy at www.rockpaperstar.com.